Hey everyone, this is Tom from VermiBag. Well, it's been a week since I fed this VermiBag Mammoth, and last week we put about basically 10 pounds of bedding and scraps on this side, and then about the same, about 10 pounds between the bedding and the scraps on the other side. So about 20 pounds roughly, give or take. And again, you got to count both the bedding and the scraps that you're feeding them because they're both stuff that the worms are going to eat. So we'll go ahead and open up the left side here and take a look at it and see what it looks like, and then we'll go over the right hand side and take a look at it and stock this thing up again for another week. Again, this bin has a lot of African night crawlers, and anybody that has African night crawlers can tell, you know, they always work the top of the surface over really, really well. I mean, the whole very top of this is just, even though it's not completely made into castings yet, it's a really fine texture. They've been working this whole area, and you can see how flat it is again now. I mean, when I got done the other day putting the feeding, it was mounded up. Now it's almost perfectly flat. I did put an ice bottle in there during the week twice, just to try and keep the temperature down, just in case it started to heat up a little when it was decomposing. Let's take a look and see what kind of worm population we have down in here and how they did with the feeding. So, a lot of worms in here. Again, this is a mixture. A lot of African night crawlers. There's some European night crawlers, and I probably wouldn't be surprised if there's some red wigglers in here too. But the majority of the worms in here now probably are the African night crawlers. They've kind of taken over a little bit. They reproduce faster than some of the others. So you can tell here I don't see much food. A few tomatoes. There's a tomato, a little bit of a tomato. Tomatoes definitely aren't their favorite food. They tend to take a while to break tomatoes down, I've found. I mean, they will eat them. I think you got to be careful with them too, adding, they're very acidic. So you need to add, you know, something to compensate for the oyster shell dust or egg shells and stuff like that. But, you know, there are big balls of worms in here. They're definitely concentrating over here where the feeding was, but as you can tell, I really don't see any of the food left. A lot of worms. There are little tiny pieces of food scraps here and there, but nothing that really resembles what I would say vegetable scraps that I put in. You see a little bit of the bedding material that I put down, that I put the food scraps on. There's a little bit of something there. Guess I did wadded together, so I think it's an orange peel. I mean, that's not a super favorite thing of theirs either, but they will eat it. I can smell it now, definitely. Moisture-wise, yeah, it's definitely fairly moist in this area because this is where I did that big feeding. But so I'm gonna go ahead and feed them some more. Same thing. I just got some shredded newspaper. I'm gonna put down a little bit of that just to absorb some of that moisture that's in the vegetables, and I don't drain out too much of the moisture in the vegetables normally, or the scraps that I have. This is right at 4 pounds frozen. So, and it's a mixture of all kinds of stuff. A lot of tops of lettuce and kale, broccoli. Like I said, I always try to mix some fruit in with it too, because I really like the sweetness and stuff. It really pulls them in. So we'll put this 4 pounds here. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and actually 4 pounds out on the other side. I'll go ahead and add just a little bit more here. So a smidgen over. And just like I did last time, I'm going to take some of this bedding that I make. That's about 3.5 pounds of bedding. I'm going to grab another one. Cover it up over there. And I'm going to kind of work my fingers into it just a little bit to try and work some of the bedding around some of that material. By breaking it up and having the bedding around it, it won't hot compost as much because you don't have big piles of vegetables. You kind of break the vegetables up and put some of the bedding in and around it and stuff, so it won't heat up as much. There. About like that. Okay. We'll go do the same thing on the other side. Take a look at that and see how it's doing. Okay, here's the other side of the Mammoth. Now last week I put about 3.5 to 4 pounds of food scraps in here, plus another 6 pounds of bedding. So, 10 pounds roughly. Same as the other side, the top 3 inches or so are really well worked over. You can tell the worms have been in here going through the top couple inches. Dig in and see what kind of worm density we have in here. Now there's that cantaloupe. I didn't open that cantaloupe up until later in the week. I forgot about it. So, it's full of worms right now. You can tell. So there's a little bit of food there left. Those cantaloupes. I saw a tomato in here too. All the other food scraps are pretty well gone, it looks like. A lot of worms, and they're definitely working this food. Little pieces and scraps of vegetables here and there. Another little piece of a cantaloupe. And again, I didn't open these until real late in the week, so I forgot about them, so they haven't had too much time to work on those. The tomatoes that are in here, I saw a tomato too, and it wasn't busted open either, so it takes them a while to get into those tomatoes if you don't break them open. Oh, no, that one's already broke. So let's go ahead and feed this one some more too. I'll put a little bit of bedding down on it. Absorb some of that material. Anytime I have napkins like this, I like to, if possible, lay them down flat. They'll decompose a lot faster. If you wad them up, you'll find them later on at the bottom of your bin, just a big wad of material. So this is just a little over 3 pounds. I'll put a little bit more on the other side. Again, I try and, don't lay it all in one big pile, because this stuff will start hot composting, and then it's not going to hurt anything. The worms will go away from it, but they're not going to get into it for a while until it cools down a little bit. So if you kind of spread it out over an area, and then go ahead and add the bedding. Again, I'm putting total about 6 pounds of bedding on this side too. And you have to count this bedding as food. The coconut coir and all the paper and stuff that are in there, but they're going to eat this too. So you can't just strictly count the food scraps that you put in. You got to really think about the bedding you're adding as well. So there's a little over 6 pounds of bedding and about 3.5 pounds of food on this side, scraps. So again, over 10 pounds on this side, 10 pounds on the other side. So again, I'm just sticking my fingers in there trying to work some of this bedding around some of those scraps, again, to try and keep it from going into a hot compost state. That's about it. And actually this Mammoth is about ready to harvest again. It's really getting up here quite, because this is one of the original ones, so it's a lot deeper. I have about 6 inches here, but I got a good 18 inches probably underneath it's full, so maybe next week I'll go ahead and do a harvest on this too. So that's it. Feeding on the Mammoth, a total of about 20 pounds basically with food and bedding. So this is the second week. Last week I did about the same, and they pretty much took care of it. This side was a little bit slacking. We had the cantaloupe in there they hadn't quite finished off, so put a little bit more of the food on that side. And we'll take a look at it next week and see how they do again. That's all from VermiBag, this is Tom. Ciao.